The small, dimly lit apartment in the heart of Lagos was filled with tension so thick it could be cut with a knife. Sophia stood in the middle of the room, her designer handbag slung over her shoulder, her eyes burning with frustration as she glared at David, the man she had once vowed to love forever. His hands were calloused from years of hard work, his clothes simple but clean, his face weary yet kind. But none of that mattered to her anymore. All she saw was the poverty, the struggle, the endless cycle of disappointment. "You will die a poor man, David," she spat, her voice trembling with anger. "I refuse to waste my youth suffering with you." David's heart shattered into a million pieces. He had spent the last 5 years doing everything he could to provide for her. Working late nights, taking on extra jobs, even skipping meals just to make sure she had what she needed. But it was never enough. Sophia wanted more. More money, more luxury, more status. And in her eyes, David would never be able to give her that. "Sophia, please," he begged, his voice cracking. "Just give me a little more time. I have this idea, a tech startup. If I can just get funding..." She let out a bitter laugh, cutting him off. "Funding? With what connections? Who would ever invest in a nobody like you?" She shook her head, her lips curling in disgust. "I was a fool to think love was enough." With that, she turned on her heel and walked out, slamming the door behind her so hard the walls shook. David stood there, frozen, the echo of her words ringing in his ears. The woman he loved, the woman he had built dreams with, had just walked away without a second glance. The days that followed were the darkest of David's life. He barely ate, barely slept. The apartment felt emptier than ever, every corner reminding him of Sophia. Her laughter, her scent, the way she used to hum while cooking. But now all that remained was silence. One evening, as he sat alone at their tiny dining table, staring at the cold plate of food he had no appetite for, his phone buzzed. It was a message from an old university friend, Amika. "Bro, you still alive?" David sighed and typed back. "Barely." Amika didn't hesitate. "Meet me at Sky Bar tonight, 8 p.m. No excuses." David wanted to refuse, to wallow in his misery a little longer, but something in him knew he needed to get out. Maybe a drink would numb the pain, even if just for a few hours. That night, Sky Bar was alive with music and laughter, the kind of place Sophia would have loved. Emeka, ever the social butterfly, greeted him with a firm handshake and a knowing look. "You look terrible," Emeka said bluntly. David shrugged. "Feel worse." Emeka ordered 2 shots of whiskey and slid one toward David. "Drink, then talk." And for the first time since Sophia left, David let everything out. The frustration, the heartbreak, the feeling of worthlessness. Emeka listened without judgment, nodding occasionally. When David finally finished, Emeka leaned in. "Listen to me, my brother. Sophia didn't leave you because you're not enough. She left because she couldn't see your worth. But I can. And I know others will too." David frowned. "What are you saying?" Emeka grinned. "I have a friend, an investor. He's been looking for fresh tech ideas. And that app you've been working on, it's genius." David's heart skipped a beat. He had been developing a fintech solution in secret, a mobile banking system designed for Nigeria's unbanked population. He had never dared to believe it could go anywhere. "You really think..." Amika clapped him on the back. "I don't think, I know. Now drink up. Tomorrow we change your life." What followed was a whirlwind of sleepless nights, endless coding and pitch meetings. David poured every ounce of his pain into his work, determined to prove Sophia wrong, not for revenge, but for himself. 6 months later, his app launched. 6 months after that, it went viral. By the end of the year, David was no longer the struggling man Sophia had left. He was a millionaire. But unlike most people who came into sudden wealth, David stayed quiet. No flashy cars, no social media bragging, no extravagant lifestyle. He invested wisely, expanded his business, and remained the same humble man, just with a few more zeros in his bank account. The only people who knew about his success were Emeka and a handful of trusted associates. The media speculated about the mysterious founder of the fastest-growing fintech company in Nigeria, but David avoided the spotlight. He had no interest in fame, but fate had other plans. 4 years after Sophia walked out, David received an envelope. Thick, expensive paper, gold cursive lettering, a wedding invitation. His stomach twisted as he opened it. Chief Adebayo Oluwasegun and Sophia Adeola request the pleasure of your company at their wedding. David's hands trembled. Sophia was getting married to a chief, a wealthy, powerful man. And then he saw the handwritten note tucked inside. David, I hope you're doing well. I wanted you to see what real success looks like. Maybe now you'll understand why I left. Sophia. The audacity, the cruelty. Emeka, who had been sitting across from him, snatched the note and read it. His face darkened. She did not just send you this. David exhaled slowly, his mind racing. You're not going, Emeka said firmly. David looked up, a slow smile spreading across his face. Oh, I'm going. The wedding was everything Sophia had ever dreamed of. A massive event at the most luxurious hotel in Lagos, dripping in gold and diamonds. She stood at the center of it all, radiant in a custom-made gown, surrounded by the elite of Nigerian society. This was her moment, her triumph. And then, chaos. Gasps rippled through the crowd as a convoy of sleek black cars pulled up outside. Security personnel stepped out first, dressed in sharp suits scanning the area, and then the man himself emerged, David. But not the David Sophia remembered. This David stepped out in a tailored Italian suit, his confidence radiating like a king returning to his kingdom. The whispers started immediately. Who is that? Is that the founder of PayVault? That's David, the one Sophia used to be married to? Sophia's smile faltered. Her groom, Chief Adebayo, stiffened, his eyes widening in recognition. Because he knew exactly who David was, and he knew what was coming. What does Chief Adebayo know? Why is he so afraid of David? And what shocking revelation will destroy Sophia's perfect wedding? Never underestimate a man in his struggle. The same hands you refuse to hold today may be the ones you beg for tomorrow. If you were David, would you have gone to the wedding? Or would you have moved on silently? The grand ballroom fell into an eerie silence as David walked in, his polished shoes clicking against the marble floor. Every eye followed him, some in awe, others in confusion. The guests murmured among themselves, their champagne glasses frozen halfway to their lips. Sophia's breath caught in her throat. This wasn't the David she had left behind. The man before her carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had conquered the world and no longer needed to prove it. His tailored suit hugged his broad shoulders. His watch alone probably cost more than her entire wedding dress. But it wasn't just his appearance that stunned her. It was the way Chief Adebayo reacted. The man she was about to marry, the wealthy businessman she had traded David for, had gone pale. His grip on her arm tightened painfully, his lips pressed into a thin line. Who invited him? Adebayo hissed under his breath. Sophia swallowed hard. I did. Adebayo's eyes flashed with something she had never seen before, fear. David didn't approach them immediately. Instead, he acknowledged a few guests who recognized him, shaking hands with influential figures who treated him with obvious respect. It was clear he belonged in this elite circle. More than that, he commanded it. Then, he turned toward the couple. Sophia's heart pounded as he walked closer, his expression unreadable. She had expected bitterness, anger, maybe even pleading. But David's face showed none of that. Just calm. Sophia, he said, his voice smooth, deep. You look beautiful. The words should have been a compliment, but they felt like a knife twisting in her gut, because they held no warmth, just fact. Adebayo stepped forward, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. David, what a surprise. I didn't expect to see you here. David's lips curled slightly. Oh, I wouldn't have missed this for the world. The tension between the two men was thick enough to choke on. Sophia's mind raced. Why was Adebayo so nervous? Then, the chief's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his face drained of all colour. He excused himself hastily, nearly stumbling in his rush to step away. Sophia was left standing there alone with David for the first time in years, the man she had thrown away like yesterday's trash. You've done well for yourself, she said, forcing a smile. David chuckled, low and knowing. Funny how things work out, isn't it? Before she could respond, Adebayo stormed back, his face twisted in fury. He grabbed David's arm, pulling him aside. What the hell is this? He snarled under his breath. You can't just... David didn't raise his voice. I think it's time we had a little chat in private. Sophia watched, bewildered, as the two men disappeared into a side room. Inside the private lounge, Adebayo whirled on David. You think you can ruin my wedding? My life? David leaned against the polished mahogany desk, arms crossed. Ruin it? Number, I'm just here to collect what's mine. Adebayo's jaw clenched. I don't owe you anything. David pulled out his phone, tapped a few times, then turned the screen toward Adebayo. The man's face went slack. That's right, David said softly. I own you. The screen showed a series of transactions. Millions of naira funneled into Adebayo's failing oil company over the past year. All from an anonymous investor. An investor named David Okonkwo. Adebayo staggered back. No, that's not possible. David's smile was ice. You were drowning in debt. Your company was weeks from collapse. And then, miraculously, a mysterious benefactor stepped in to save you. He tilted his head. Guess you should have checked who was behind the money. Sophia, who had been eavesdropping at the door, burst in. What is going on? Adebayo turned to her, panic in his eyes. Sophia, it's not what it looks like. David didn't move. Tell her, Aid. Tell her how your empire was built on my money. Tell her how you've been borrowing just to keep up appearances. Sophia's hands flew to her mouth. What? Adebayo's shoulders slumped in defeat. David straightened. And since we're being honest, he pulled out another document. Your prenup is void, because all those assets you claim to have, they were never yours to begin with. Sophia swayed on her feet. This couldn't be happening. When they returned to the ballroom, the guests sensed something was wrong. The music died down. The chatter ceased. David walked straight to the podium and picked up the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, his voice carrying effortlessly through the room. Before we celebrate this union, there's something you should know. Adebayo lunged forward, but two security guards blocked him. David continued. Chief Adebayo's entire fortune was funded by my investments. And as of this moment, he paused. I'm pulling out. Gasps erupted. Adebayo shouted, You can't do this. David ignored him. Every loan, every line of credit, called in, effective immediately. The room exploded in chaos. Guests scrambled to call their accountants. Business partners turned on Adebayo, demanding answers. Sophia stood frozen, her dream wedding crumbling before her eyes. David stepped down from the podium and walked over to her. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a check. 10 million naira, he said, pressing it into her limp hand. For old time's sake. Then he turned and walked away, leaving her standing there in her ruined wedding gown, surrounded by the wreckage of her greed. 3 months later, David sat in his penthouse office, reviewing new investment proposals. His company had doubled in value since the incident, as the media called it. Emeka walked in, shaking his head. You've become a legend, you know. The man who destroyed a wedding with a single speech. David smirked. Justice has a way of working itself out. Meanwhile, across town, Sophia wiped down a counter at a small cafe, her once manicured nails now chipped and plain. Adebayo had fled the country, leaving her with nothing but the check David had given her, a check she was too proud to cash. She had learned the hard way. Money comes and goes, but true character? That lasts forever. Was David's revenge justified? Or should he have walked away silently? Subscribe for more stories.